Hey, welcome to The Explainer. We're all about taking big, game-changing ideas and making them super clear and useful. Today, we're diving into a concept that could totally shift how you think about getting better at, well, at pretty much anything. All right, to get our heads around this, we're going to start with this really cool analogy from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So just imagine this. A plane is on the runway in New York, all set for a cross-country flight to LA. Everything is perfectly on course. Okay, so the plane's all set. But what if, right before it takes off, the pilot makes this tiny adjustment? Just 3 degrees. I mean, 3 degrees, what is that? You'd barely even notice it, right? Seems totally insignificant. Yeah, but here's the crazy part. After flying across the entire country, that tiny little shift means you completely miss your target. You don't land in LA at all. You end up way south, closer to Tijuana, Mexico. And that, right there, is a perfect picture of how these tiny, almost invisible changes, when they add up over time, can lead you to massively different places. So that's the whole idea right there. That exact same principle applies to our daily lives, to our habits. This is the core concept behind what James Clear calls atomic habits, these tiny little routines that act as the building blocks for some pretty incredible results. You know, we so often think that to get massive success, we need to take some kind of massive action. We get all hyped up for these huge, life-altering changes. But the math tells a completely different story. It's not about these giant leaps. It's all about the power of these small, consistent 1% improvements that just snowball. And this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Let's talk about the math behind that 1%. If you get just 1% better at something every single day for a year, you'd think you'd be what, 365% better? Nope. Because of compounding, you end up almost 38 times better than when you started. That is just staggering. But here's the thing. This is a double-edged sword. It absolutely works both ways. Those small positive habits, they compound and work for you. But the opposite is just as true. If you get just 1% worse each day, making those slightly poor choices, skipping that workout, it all adds up, and it can erode your skills, your health, pretty much anything, down to almost zero over the course of a year. Okay, so if this compounding thing is so powerful, why isn't everyone doing it? Why do we give up so easily? Well, it's because we all run into this one major roadblock, and the author has a great name for it, the Valley of Disappointment. Here's what happens. We expect our progress to be a straight line. We put in the work for a few days, a few weeks, and we don't see the results we wanted. We look in the mirror, we check our bank account, and nothing seems to be happening. So we think, this isn't working. But the reality is, with any compounding process, the biggest results are always delayed. You just have to have the patience to push through that initial phase. So, how do we get through that valley? This leads us to a really crucial mindset shift. It's about completely reframing how we approach achievement. And here it is, straight from the book, forget about goals, focus on systems instead. Now, what does that mean? Well, goals are about the result you want, but systems are the processes that lead to those results. And the argument here is that we should pour our energy into building better systems. I mean, just think about it for a second. Every single athlete in the Olympics has the goal of winning a gold medal, right? Every person applying for a job has the goal of getting hired. So the goal itself isn't what separates the winners from the losers. What does separate them is their system, that commitment to continuous, tiny improvements day in and day out.
Okay, so systems are the way to go. But how do we make those systems actually stick? This is where it gets really deep. The key is understanding that true, lasting change has to come from the inside out.
You see, you can think of behavior change as having 3 layers, like an onion. On the outside, you have your outcomes. That's what you get. The next layer in is your process. That's what you do. But at the very core, the most powerful layer is your identity. That's what you believe about yourself. Most of us try to change from the outside in, starting with the outcome. But the most effective change starts at the very center, with identity. And this is the perfect example of that shift. It's the difference between an outcome-based goal and an identity-based one. The goal isn't just to run a marathon. It's to become a runner. It's not to write a book. It's to become a writer. See the difference? When your habits are just part of who you are, part of your identity, you're not fighting to achieve something anymore. You're just being yourself. All right, so this brings us to the really practical part, the toolkit, the nuts and bolts for how you actually build these identity-based habits. It's a really simple but powerful set of 4 rules to basically engineer your own behavior. So let's look at the first 3 laws. All of these are designed to do one thing: increase the chances that you'll actually do the habit this time. Let's run through it. Okay, law number 1, make it obvious. It's simple, right? You can't change a habit if you're not even aware of it. So you need to make the cues for your good habits impossible to ignore. Want to read more? Don't hide the book on a shelf. Put it right on your pillow. Want to drink more water? Leave a bottle on your desk. You're designing your environment to nudge you in the right direction. Law number 2, make it attractive. Look, our brains are wired to want things that feel good. So you can hack this by linking something you need to do with something you want to do. The book calls this temptation bundling. So, for example, maybe you only let yourself watch your favorite show while you're on the exercise bike. You're making the habit you need to build way more appealing. And number 3, make it easy. We are all fundamentally lazy. We're wired to follow the path of least resistance. So you have to reduce the friction, the effort it takes to do your good habits. Lay out your gym clothes the night before, so you just have to put them on. And if you want to break a bad habit, you do the exact opposite. You increase the friction. Hide the junk food in a hard-to-reach cabinet. All right, on to the final law. And this one is what makes sure you come back and do the habit again tomorrow. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change. And honestly, you could argue it's the most important one of them all. Here's the deal. Our brains are hardwired for immediate gratification. That's why bad habits are so tempting. The reward is right now. So the trick is to give your good habits some kind of immediate payoff. This is why things like habit trackers are so powerful. Crossing off a day on your calendar, it gives you this little hit of satisfaction. It feels good right now. And that feeling reinforces the behavior, making you want to do it again. And really, this quote just sums it all up perfectly. Success isn't about these once-in-a-lifetime transformations. It's the product of our daily habits. It's what we do day in and day out that matters. These tiny atomic habits, they're the building blocks that slowly but surely build the life you actually want. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It really comes down to this one question for you to think about. What is one tiny, 1% change you can make today that will put you on a slightly better path? Because remember that plane. That small course correction, compounded over time, will take you to a completely different and hopefully much better destination.